Hey guys, welcome to a bit of a course recce discussion around Melbourne 70.3. Ideally, this is targeted at those who are doing their first 70.3 or their first Melbourne 70.3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the course in a little bit of detail. Full disclosure, it's actually not one that I have raced at this point in time. Very familiar with the course, so having been on site as a coach, but also a lot of the course is actually very familiar if you are if you compete in the 2XU series. So a lot of the course is actually, I guess, extended or reused from the 2XU series. So somebody would be very familiar if you've done that before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the course. Just bear with me, I'll bring it up. All right. So looking on the website here, on the Ironman website, and this is one that I would recommend that perhaps, while you're watching this, maybe if you're watching this on your phone, bring it up on a laptop or vice versa, just so you can have a bit of a look at it. So under the event type here, obviously we're in the St Kilda one. 70.3 in St Kilda. So that's where it starts and finishes at Catani Gardens in St Kilda. And we're just going down to the course. So just before we get into the actual course itself, um, parking is something that can be a little bit of an issue down around in St Kilda. Now, there is plenty of parking. It's just not easily identified, I guess. And you do have to be a little bit careful of parking restrictions and potentially picking up a parking ticket because it has been known to happen in the past. Getting a park like really close to St Kilda or to the transition will be difficult on race day in particular. So I would plan ahead and maybe, or we'd be recommending that you're arriving at the absolute latest. You're probably arriving around about lunchtime on the Saturday before the race. So maybe spend a little bit of time just sort of scoping out one of those little side streets that perhaps you might be able to get a park in. And you'll find that if you sort of if you're willing to walk, an extra 5 or 10 minutes, you're going to find plenty of parks. They're going to be in little suburban side streets. Just obviously be careful and be mindful of people's driveways and not parking up on the actual nature strip, and that where you are parked, you've got the ability to park there for essentially all day on the Sunday. So, bit of an advice there, just sort of recce your potential parking spot. And have a few options because depending on what time you try and get there, someone may have already pinched your spot. The other bit that I would say is allow heaps of time the morning of, just in case you do run into some issues and you have to park a bit further away. So, aim to be at transition when transition opens, if not, just a couple of minutes before. So start everything early. Don't sort of leave it to the last moment thinking you'll get a car park nice and quickly and nice and closely, and then suddenly you're rushing or you miss transition and that sort of thing. So it's an easy way to ruin your day. So just allow plenty of time. All right. So if we go into the swim, there's the diagram there that you can see. Essentially, it's a clockwise course, one lap clockwise. There is one single turn to your left, which is your very first buoy that you're going to turn at. And so you're going to have these turn buoys being 1, 2, 3, 4. And then in between, you've got your orange buoys. Now, there's a very good chance that this will be marked out on Saturday afternoon. So it's worth going down and having a look and orientating yourself where it is. They do have 2 in the first, 2 in the second, 3 in the third section, and then 2 in the last section. Whether that is actually the case or not on the day, maybe just have a bit of a look, even just scoping it out on race morning as well. If possible on the Saturday, maybe even get in for a bit of a swim, particularly if you're not familiar with the salt water. For those of you that have been with me, and we're looking at 2024 edition, this one, we are inland triathletes, so we don't get as much access to salt water or to the surf. So it can be a little bit of a challenge getting used to that. Just off as some advice, salt water is more buoyant. So you're going to find that you're going to feel like you're sitting on top of the water a little bit more. If you're particularly new and you haven't tried out your wetsuit, you're going to feel really fast. So try to maintain A nice level head. Don't get too excited, and so that you don't burn too many calories and too many matches in the first bit of the swim. So obviously, swim entry here. There'll be a marshalling point. They'll call you up. It'll be probably by your it will be by your age group and your swim cap color. You'll marshal, and then they'll do a progressive entry. So they'll blow the whistle or the horn, and it'll be probably 4 or 5 of you entering every 5 seconds. So there's no mad rush into the water. Your time starts when you cross the start line, start the timing pad. So even if you're at the back of your group, you're not competing against those at the front of in terms of they're 5 minutes ahead of you. Your time starts when you cross that pad. So the first thing is the first swim out. We're going out a little bit, just 100 or so meters, I think it is, and then we turn right. Turn left. We turn left, and then every other turn after that is a right-hand turn. Now you've got to make sure that you actually go around these turn buoys. You have to go around them. You can't cut across the corners. You will be disqualified if you are seen to be doing that. You can tuck right in behind them, right almost underneath them, but you have to go around them. You can't cut the corners. Bit different when you are looking at your sight buoys here. You can swim either side of those. Depending on the nature of how you breathe, you might be more dominant on your left or your right, so you might find it more comfortable to keep them on your left or your right. When I'm swimming, I tend to breathe more on my right. So this course for me works really well. I really like clockwise courses because it means that I'm my dominant side, I'm sighting a lot better. Always open water, sight your buoys. Don't sort of put your head down and just go hell for leather and not look up. You want to be sighting, roughly every 6 or so strokes, and making sure that you're maintaining that line. So line up the first one, swim to it, line up the second one, swim to it, then line up your turn buoy, and repeat that process all the way around. Now, your last turn, so you've got one left, 2 right, and then a third right-hand turn. Then it's just straight down back to the beach. They will have sight buoys. They're marked here with white. They could be big black ones. Have a look at on Race Morning, you'll see what they look like. They stand out pretty well. There might be an arch or flags, that sort of stuff. And there will also be a crowd there to watch people come out. So be mindful that you will, depending on the water, you might have a little bit of a swell to help you back in. So try and take advantage of that. The other thing with the swim is that you are at St Kilda Beach, you're in Port Phillip Bay. You can get any type of weather, and it could be absolutely as flat as a pancake on the Saturday, and it's white caps the following day. So the ability to get in on the Saturday and have a bit of a swim is really going to be advantageous for you, just to get a feel for it. Be prepared, given that you are doing a clockwise course and you are facing every direction on the compass when you go around this course. At some point, you are going to end up with some form of waves in your face. It is the bay. It's not going to be like an absolute mill pond, even if it is what we would consider pancake flat. There is still going to be some sort of swell, and you are going to get some sort of water in your face. Salt water, it can burn a little bit. Be prepared for copping a little bit of water in your face, okay? The swim can be uncomfortable. If there's a bit of wind up, then obviously the swell is going to pick up as well. You can also use that to your advantage. So if you've got a swell or a wind at your back, use it to your advantage, and particularly on that way back in after your 4th turn. So up in the top left here of the course, when we're turning back towards the beach, you can use that swell to your advantage and try and do a little bit of body surfing, particularly as you get a little bit closer. Just remember, be calm, take your time. If it's particularly rough, it's perfectly okay to breaststroke if you're not feeling too confident or you've taken a mouthful of water. The worst thing you can do in the water is panic. So the best thing, if you do feel like you're panicking, remember to breathe. Literally just breathe. Focus on your breathing, nice, calm, controlled strokes, and just breathe. If you need to do a couple of breaststrokes, just to pop your head up to get a bit of an idea of a sight, that's perfectly okay. And another technique is to actually, if you find yourself panicking, roll onto your back, look up, breathe, get that heart rate down, let the panic settle. Remind yourself you've got this, you've done the training. and then get back into the swimming, roll back over and start the freestyle again. Okay. Um, I'll go down. I'll just download the PDF. So you can see that there is a fairly long um, transition. So this bit here is actually going to be uphill. So there'll be a little bit of a steep incline there. So something to be aware of is that when you get out of the water, you've spent, you know, 30, 40, maybe even longer, 45 minutes horizontal in the water. And you're going to be using your upper body. So your legs haven't done too much. So particularly in this last 100 or so meters, make sure that you're starting to kick your legs a bit more, get that blood flow happening back into your legs, and then start thinking about, okay, what's going to happen next. You can start thinking, how am I going to get out of the water? What do I need to be careful of? What have I got coming up? And you can start thinking about, preparing your mind for that transition phase, and then getting ready for the bike. So get the legs moving. Take your time when you get out of the water. You'll see people getting up and they're running. If you haven't done it before, you might find your legs are a little bit feel a bit jelly, and that's just because you've been horizontal for so much time. So again, kick the legs, get the blood flowing. If it's cold, and there's every chance it could be in Melbourne, it could also be 45 degrees, guys. I doubt it, but it could be. But it's more than likely going to be a bit fresh in the water. So you might have numb feet. Okay. So just be aware of that and take care. The beach itself is fantastic. It's nice, soft sand. There's no rocks really to worry about. But it can be a bit of a shock when you can suddenly go from horizontal to standing, and you can feel a bit loose and wobbly in the legs, maybe get a little bit lightheaded. So just take your time. If you feel that way, stop and walk for a little bit and then get back into a jog and let the blood come back through. Okay. It's about taking it easy to making sure that you don't injure yourself by trying to do too much too soon. Another thing to do is the moment you get out of the water, as you're coming up the beach, try and get the top half of your wetsuit off as quick as you can. Okay. The reason for that is the longer you leave that, the water will actually drain out that's in your wetsuit, and it tends to stick and it can get a little bit hard. So, as you're coming in, one moment you stand up and you've got your bearings and you're running up the beach, reach around, get that zip down, and get the wetsuit down around your waist as soon as you can. Okay. You're not going to take the wetsuit off until you get to transition. Depending on the race, and I haven't seen anything here to suggest otherwise, but depending on the race, some actually forbid it. You are absolutely not allowed to take your wetsuit off before you get to transition. Others, there can be a bit more relaxed about it. My suggestions for this one is get it around your waist, keep jogging, and get into transition where you'll take it off from your waist down. Okay. All right. So that is swim and then the run up to transition. Let me go back. And we'll go and, sorry. So we've got a rolling start. As I mentioned before, you've got your swim cap colors. So those are the ones there. So not a huge amount of age groups there. Okay. You're actually selecting your times. So pink are going off first because I think they're going to be a bit quicker. If you're in that 33 to 37 minute time frame, you're going to be blue. Neon green is going to be in that 37 to 41. And then over 41 is going to be violet. Okay. You have a good idea of what your swim will be because you've done these distances already as part of your program. So you'll have a good idea as to where you fit, and when you're in your entry, you've already nominated this, so you'll get that. So this could mean you could be up against people who are a lot younger or a lot older. We're doing it by time, not by gender or by age group. Okay. All right. Back. All right. So, as I said before, you'll be released in intervals. It's probably going to be about 4 or 5 of you at a time. In the past, they have 4 or 5 little chutes. As you marshal, you line up, and then they'll either have an automated beep, which will go probably every 5 seconds, or there'll be someone standing there with their hands up, a bit like an air traffic control, and they'll raise their hands up and drop them down, raise them up, drop them down. Okay. Okay. Let's go and have a look at the bike. So I'm going to download the PDF on this one because it's not going to fit in. Okay. Main thing to remember with the bike course, one, it's 90 kilometers, 2 laps. Okay. It's a 45-kilometer lap and you do it twice. Now, the laps themselves, you will actually go a little bit north of St Kilda first, then you'll do a turnaround, and the vast majority of the course is going to be done towards the south. So from St Kilda heading back down towards Frankston. Okay. You don't obviously get all the way down to Frankston. You actually get down to Mordialloc. The thing with the bike course, and I think a lot of people think, oh, it's on the bay, it must be flat. And the answer to that is it's actually not. It is undulating. And if you have a look at the course profile here, you can see there's quite a few lumps and bumps. Okay. They're nothing too serious, but you do work and it keeps you honest, this course, particularly if the wind is up. All right. More than likely, there is going to be a headwind. So keep an eye on the weather. It's just always been the case when you're down there. Unless we happen to get a really, really spectacular day, there's probably going to be a headwind. Which way it comes from, there's a fair chance it's probably going to be more southerly than northerly, but let's see what happens. Okay, we are in the middle of spring and anything could happen. So 2 laps. It gets particularly undulating down around the Mordialloc area, so along Beach Road. And then up and around Brighton, it's a bit lumpy and bumpy there too. Okay, so they're not serious hills, but you'll know that you're riding them. Okay, the key here is to keep your cadence nice and steady. Yeah, up around that 90 to 100 RPM. Use your gears. Okay, don't sort of stick yourself in a nice high gear because you've just come down a hill and you're trying to maximize your speed, and then you just try and grind it out up the next hill because it doesn't look that big. Use your gears. Okay. One, we don't want to fry your legs for the run. And 2, it's going to make it easier. Okay. There's no point fighting up a hill when you've got gears to use. There is plenty of opportunity to stay in your TT bars the whole way through. Okay. With only 2 turns at the top and the bottom of the course, for the vast majority, you'll be able to be in your TT bars the entire way up and the entire way back. You just might find you're getting out a little bit either to overtake or maybe to work up a hill. But for the vast majority, you're going to be right to stay in the TT bars. Don't be surprised if there are non-competitors riding on the course. Beach Road is extremely popular with bike riders. And some will ride there regardless of what's on. I've seen it plenty of times with road riders coming through, and they just sort of have little regard for the fact that there's an event on. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but don't be surprised if it does. Also, don't be surprised if you see big groups forming. Big drafting trains and the like. Don't get involved in that. All right, there'll be plenty of people who will do it. Hopefully the TOs will do their job and get out and try and separate them. But every single time I've competed along Beach Road in any event, there is always big groups. And I think it's just the nature of the road. The fact that it's a 45K loop and you're looking at 20 odd Ks down, 20 odd Ks back to give you a 45. It compresses everything a little bit. It's not like everyone's spread out over maybe a 90K loop or anything like that. And also because of your swim waves, you can have these bulk groups of people sort of forming up together. So try and avoid that. If you do find that you're being overtaken, just make sure you're dropping back, stay nice and consistent, and avoid the trap of sort of falling in behind and maybe drafting. And if you find that you're pulling a few people along, don't be afraid to tell them to back off, or if they're gonna get that close, they've got to pass. So you'll probably hear some of that out on the course as well. Okay, so some key things here. It's not flat. It's undulating, but the actual hills themselves aren't anything serious. And use your gears. Okay, it'll keep you honest, this one. All right, and remember, 2 laps. Okay, this PB, which is just near transition, that's your penalty box. So if you happen to be shown a penalty, then you have to self-nominate at the penalty box. They're not going to pull you over. You have to, if you get shown the penalty card, then when you get to the penalty box, you have to let them know, and they'll mark you off. And depending on the colour that you get, will determine whether it's a short or a long penalty. Okay. The details on the penalties are in the manual, so make sure you read that. Right. Let me go back to there. See if there's anything else I wanted to pop into the bike. Don't think there was for that one. Now, they do call it fast and flat undulating. I'll use the term undulating. Okay. Right. The run, same thing. It's not flat. It is undulating, and it's pretty much all along the beach. You do come in a little bit, but for the most part, you're on the footpaths around, on that beach foreshore, and sometimes you actually right down, not on the actual beach itself, but on the path right next to it. It can be wind affected. There will be walkers out. There will be dog walkers out. Okay, so just be mindful of that, and just be prepared for it to be pretty busy. Okay, so let me download that one again. There you can see you've got some undulations in there. It, like the bike, is a 2-lap course. All right. So when you come out of transition, you're initially going to head south, away from, back the way you went on the bike, so down towards Frankston to 2-lap. You'll actually come past transition and turn around just north of transition. You'll bypass it. If you have a look at the inset here, you'll bypass it for your 2nd lap. And this is where the Tri-Club Village will be. This is where we will be set up with our club tent. You'll see myself and Coach Steph out on the course and at various points. We'll probably be yelling at you and have a camera in hand. So, smile and take the advice. So you'll come past the exit for the finish chute to start your 2nd lap. And then when you return back for the 2nd time and you're nearly at your 21, you're probably going to be at about 21K and you've got about 100 meters to go. You're going to take a little sharp left, sharp right into the finish chute, and then you'll finish there. Okay. So having a look, it's just 2 turnarounds, so top and bottom turnarounds, a couple of little sharp turns in here. They are usually pretty well marked, but as I mentioned, there will be dog walkers out. There will be just walkers and other runners out as well. So just be mindful of that as well. It does happen. It's a busy part of the city, so they'll come down and they'll be there. A few aid stations. So you've got an aid station. Your first aid station will be R1 down here. Got one towards the back. I'm pretty sure that these will be double-sided, so you'll go past it on your way down. You'll actually be able to access it on your way back as well. And then you've got one just sort of opposite the finish line, which will probably be a one-way aid station. It might be set up as a double, but given that there's not much between there and the turnaround, they're probably going to be just a one-sided one. But I would imagine that these are R1 and R2 are double-sided. Okay. All right. There's one more bit that I want to go to, the venue here. So it's Catani Gardens. All right. Plenty of events happen down here. You probably, if you do 2XU, you probably race here, I think, 2 times a year. Fairly big and open. We will be set up down here somewhere, down at the bottom end. So to the south of, closer to the swim exit, but on the run course there. Your bike racking will be just in here. Here's your transition. And it's right beside your run exit, but also beside your finish line there. Okay. Once you've actually finished, there'll be a little bit of an athlete recovery area before you'll exit back out, and you'll be able to come back to the club tent. Okay. When we exit and enter for transition for the bike, it's over on the side here. So you'll exit on the left here. You'll run all the way around and you'll mount up on the road. You won't mount in here because that's actually a gravel road. Oh, sorry, gravel path. For those of you from Ballarat, you'd be familiar with the same surface. It's what they have around Lake Wendouree, and for those in Geelong, it's up around the Steam Packet Gardens, that sort of stuff. So that crushed granite path. Okay. When you come in at the end of your second map, there'll be second lap. Sorry, there'll be a dismount point about here, and then you'll have to run all the way in. A little tip for you guys: when you're racking your bikes on Saturday, and then make sure you check your race guide as to when you need to do that. Just don't go in and rack your bike and then just walk out. Actually picture where it is. Try and get an idea, because sometimes they like to flip how you get in and out for transition, and then it changes on race day. So it can be just a little bit disconcerting. So take your time, have a look at the signs. The signs will be able to help you. They'll say run exit and bike exit. So just orientate yourself. Take note of what row you are on, if it's a letter or a number. Have a look for anything that might identify it. It might be near a lamp post, or it could be next to a tree. And try and imagine when you're coming in, and you'll come in via, this is your swim entry, this green dot here. So you're actually going to run in, just double check that. Yeah, swim exit. So you're going to actually run in and then around here. So you're going to enter from the top for your swim. And then you're going to have to probably run down where this purple line is here. There'll be a fence in between, but you have to probably run down here and then up to your bike. So take note of which row down this way and which side you're on. The amount of times we see people, they run in and they see, oh, I'm in row H. They go down row H, but they're actually meant to be between row H and I instead of between row G and H. So they see the H and they run, they immediately turn left, and then they have to try and either duck under or go around the end, and it'll delay time. So just take your time to orientate yourself and know where you are. And the flip side is orientate how you're going to get in, how you're going to identify where your rack is when you come off your bike from this point here for your bike entry. All right. Do I have to turn left or right? And which side of the rack am I on? So which side am I actually turning down to make sure that you're going down? Okay. Once you have got your, once you've come into the bike and you've racked your bike, you're going to take off your wetsuit and then put your gear on. I'm going to do a separate video in terms of how to set up your transition, and I'll pop that into your training peaks. Take your time, make sure that you then take all of your swim gear. So it'll be your cap, and I recommend that you swim with 2 caps. So you'll have just a standard, use your GPC one if you have one, or just any favorite sort of cap. Put that on first, put your goggles on after that, and then double cap. So use your race cap as the last thing, and it'll actually go over the top of your swim band. So your cap band, your goggle band. And that way it just helps lock everything in. It's a little bit warmer, particularly if the water's cold, but it also prevents either, most likely, an accidental knocking of your goggles off by someone accidentally maybe flicking a finger through your goggle strap and accidentally flicking it off. So by having the cap over the top, the second cap over the top, it can help prevent that, okay? So when you get into transition, first thing I want you to do is get your wetsuit off. Right, just rip it down your ankles. And when I say rip it, I mean pull it down, but don't rip your wetsuit. Pull it down, flick your feet out, one at a time, get them out. And then with your goggles and your wetsuit and your swim cap, sort of bundle them up very quickly and put them at the top of your transition. So above where you would have your running gear. So sort of up below the front wheel of your bike, if that makes sense. Okay. So your bike's going to be sitting up on the rack, just pop it up there. That way it doesn't get sort of caught or run over. And, wetsuits are not cheap. So as much as we want to try and get them off quickly, we need to protect them as well. So if you just bundle that all up above your running gear, then it'll just be nice and safe there, okay? So get your gear off and then immediately get into your bike gear, okay? You cannot unrack your bike until you have your helmet on. So I tend to go shoes first because I tend to put my shoes on and then run in them. I don't really do the I don't have them locked in and then put my shoes on whilst I'm riding. I'll put them on first. So I'll do that. Then my helmet goes on. Then I unrack my bike. The TOs will probably be right on that. Okay. It's a really easy way to get disqualified or cop a penalty. So the simple thing is don't touch your bike until you've got your helmet on your head and clipped up. Okay. And the reverse happens when you come back in. Rack your bike as the very first thing that you do, then take your helmet off. Okay. So at no point should you have a helmet either unclipped or not on, and your bike is not on the rack. All right. Helmet first when you're getting on, helmet last when you're coming back. Okay. Always keep that in mind. So when we've come back from our come back from our ride, we rack our bike, take our helmet off, take our bike shoes off. All right, if you haven't already, depending on how you're managing your shoes on the day. Most of the people that this is intended for will have their shoes still on, and they'll have ran into transition with their shoes on. Take them off, and then get your running shoes on. And in the other video, I'll explain. But something to think about is what can you do during the run at the start of the run that doesn't require you to be in transition. And what I mean by that is putting on a hat, putting on sunnies, putting some nutrition in your back pocket, whatever it is that you need. Can you do that whilst you're running? And if the answer to that is yes, then do it. So that will save you some time. So the quickest way to get out of transition is really have everything set up in a way where you can quickly put on your shoes, grab those other items that you can do whilst you're running, and then get out onto the course. And then in that first 100 meters, that's when you're putting your hat on, putting your sunnies on, and grabbing that nutrition and shoving it into your back pocket. You've run out with it in your hand. You will see people who like to sit down and have a cut lunch and waste a lot of valuable time that they could otherwise save just by running out with it. Okay, so it's about how you set up your transition as well. So you're out for your 2 laps. Make sure you follow your nutrition plan. Your coach has provided you with one, and enjoy it. There'll be plenty of people on course supporting. Ideally, you're wearing your GPC kit so that we can easily spot you and see you. And it's always really awesome to see people in GPC kit out on course. So if you've got that, please wear it. And ideally, you've already worn it before race day. So nothing new on race day is an old rule that we like to adhere to. Okay. Follow your nutrition plan. Listen to your coach. Listen to your supporters out on course. I like to high five any child that I see out there who's looking for a high five. Gives you a little boost. Might turn them into the next Jan Frodeno as well, because they might feel really supported and they do it. So I kind of think of it like that as well. And then enjoy your coming down the finish line. It's a big effort to do a 70.3. It's a huge effort, and it takes a lot of training, and you've actually earned it. So don't, obviously run down and enjoy the finish line, but take your time as well. Take it in, and don't be in a rush to sort of leave the finish line area as well. As in, once you've got through and you've got your medal and your towel, don't be in a rush to leave the recovery area. Take your time in there, because once you're out, you can't get back in. All right. Some other things to think about is one, your accommodation for the night before. So make sure you've got that booked in. But if you've got family and friends who are coming to visit and support you, that's fantastic. You've got to be a little bit selfish in this regard. You are there to compete and you're an athlete. But maybe it might be worth, identifying a spot that, once you've crossed the line, that you'll meet them at this certain point, and you might say, look, not immediately after, it might be 15 minutes after I finish, I'll meet you back at the club tent, for example, or I'll meet you at, that palm tree just outside the exit gate of the finish line area. So have that conversation with them first, because you won't have access to a phone, because it's either with them or probably sitting in your bag at back at the club tent. And then enjoy and get plenty of photos. Celebrate, share, and then have a chat to your coach, in the few days after about, how you went, where you could improve, what you want to do, in terms of improving your own self, or what you feel like you need to work on more. And it definitely helps us, set some goals for the next one. I think that's about all, guys. If you've got any questions, by all means, flick your coach and Chris or Stefan at gpcsquad.com.au. Send questions through to us. We are more than happy to answer them, and we will see you on course. See you later.